Hi, folks. This is Dr. Kat Schreier, founder of WaterCitizen.com, and I'm actually here not with Water Citizen, but to launch a new channel on YouTube that I'm calling Homeless and Healthy. Actually, I need to remember that. But the reason I wanted to get this video out before I even know what the damn channel is called is I am so sick and tired of seeing this comedian Tristan Hopper and his little his National Post article about I'm begging you stop donating canned goods to food banks, and him and Adam ruins everything, talking about, don't give cans to the food banks as if there is just one mega food bank. If it's like Bank of America or something, that you've got just branches of the same food bank everywhere. Okay, and they're talking about this idea that you shouldn't give cans to a food bank, because the food banks, if you give them cash, they can go buy cans, right? And then they can distribute the food. And if you give them the cans, well, then they have to bring in these volunteers, and the volunteers have to sort out all the cans and decide for poor, helpless people that they're giving food to, decide for them what fits in their diet and what doesn't, and whether what is in the can is going to fit for them or not. And one of the reasons I'm reminded of this is I just now saw a post by a friend or a husband or a friend on Facebook asking whether it's typically okay to give candy bars and soda pop, sugar sodas, to food bank, knowing that it contributes to obesity, and basically making the decisions for people who are okay. And I am here to tell you that homeless people are not helpless. Homeless people are not brainless. Homeless people can make their own fucking decisions. And the reason I am in a position to say that is because I am actually right now living in a facility, through a program run by the Salvation Army for the homeless. Well, how did that happen? Well, it's been 5 years since I was in journalism school, and had a lot of people who didn't think that I could do journalism in the water arena and have it be financially sustainable. Ended up trying to do coaching, work with the coaching industry, and had a lot of people who didn't pay me for my services. And ergo, when you don't get paid, you can't pay rent, and therefore you might end up homeless. But you know what? People end up homeless for all sorts of reasons, debt, divorce, disaster, death, all the usual stuff that can lead to financial bad situations. And when that happens and you can't pay rent, you end up homeless. That happens, okay? There are programs that are designed to help people when they're in this situation, hopefully as a temporary situation, so that they can get back on their feet. And that's the place where I am now. And that also means that I didn't have money, not only, my clients not paying me, I not only didn't have money for housing, I also didn't have money for food. So see the system from a different perspective than perhaps Mr. Tristan Hopper or Adam Ruins Everything, or these people who are not journalists. Okay, they're not journalists. They're not investigative reporters. They're not, they make a few phone calls and they make a video and they make money off of how many times you watch the videos. So it serves them to make money off of putting out things that are very poorly researched, but get a lot of clicks. Trust me, I know a little more about this than Tristan Hopper or Adam Ruins Everything. Okay, so let's go back to talking about what this video was originally about, which is food banks. There are so many different organizations that that serve people who are homeless and people who need food. And obviously the people who need food are not all homeless. There's quite a few people who have homes, who, for whatever reason, got laid off. Client was late with a check, whatever situation where they are in need of food. And that's what food banks are for, is for people who need food. And, they don't really ask a lot of questions. It could be anything. It could be medical bills. Suddenly, people who had once been financially well off have been hit with medical bills and suddenly find themselves in a situation where they can't work and they can't pay their bills and they don't have money for food. And so, for, again, no judgment, for whatever reason, people might end up in a situation where they need food and they go to a food bank. Now, what has been happening with these food banks is there's many different, there are so many different models out there of places that provide food to people who need food. Okay. Yes, there are the large, behemoth organizations like the Salvation Army, like Red Cross, like whoever, who include food distribution as a part of their services. And perhaps in those cases, as Tristan Hopper suggests, they are professionals, right? And just give us money and we'll go and we'll do these bulk purchases of food and we'll decide what people want or need in their diets. Many, many more places at a local level where they basically are collecting food. They have volunteers. Maybe they're run through a church. Maybe maybe it's a place that the Girl Scouts go and volunteer at. Um, these private organizations locally that are designed to support people who need food locally. Like, particularly I'm thinking about the Alameda Food Bank, because when I was in Alameda, sleeping on the couch of a friend's office while I was waiting for a job that never materialized, I needed to supplement what I was getting with food stamps, and I would go to the food bank. Now, Alameda Food Bank was a separate organization, and it was designed to serve people in Alameda. Okay, and yes, they had probably some financial needs, and they had a trailer, and then they had a warehouse, and they had people who were very many staff. I think it was mostly volunteers there, but then they also had places that were distributing food that were affiliated with the food bank. In particular, I'm thinking about the Episcopal Church, and I happen to be an Episcopalian, and I happen to live and near, or lived near, and attended as a member the Episcopal Church that was also a distribution center for the food bank. So basically, what would happen is the food bank would have collected food, but there would also be food that was donated directly to the church, and people would just come and they would drop off bags of food. And so what would happen is the volunteers would come early before, once a week there'd be a distribution. This was particularly for a lot of this was the was the perishables. Okay, so you've got the non-perishables, and you've got your standard stuff, and yeah, maybe you can buy giant bulk orders of cans of tuna, but there's also, people who would use the can of tuna or the can of cranberries that, people buy like 3 cans of cranberries and then they realize they only need one and they stick one way in the back of the storage, right? Thinking, well, I'll just use it next year. And then the next year they start making their list of all the things they need for their Thanksgiving dinner and they buy new cranberry and they forget that they had a can of cranberries in the back of the storage, right? So these are the kinds of things that sometimes show up. And then there's all sorts of reasons why people have cans in their cabinets that they're not using, that are taking up space. A lot of times things are on sale, and people mix and match and they're running through the store very quickly and they buy things they don't need and eat that. It would eat, it's not that it's leftover stuff that's rotting, that's going to go bad and you're giving this horrible food. This is perfectly good food that happens to be in cans and can last for a long time. So if you have food that you're not going to use, especially if it's non-perishable stuff like stuff in cans, for God's sakes, bring it to the damn food bank. What else are you going to do with it? You're going to throw it out because some damn comedian made a video telling you to give money, not food? Find out who the local food distribution centers are in your area. Okay. Give them your food. Donate locally. Now, as far as the perishable stuff, I mean, the canned food, especially the canned vegetables, often that might be the only place that you can actually find vegetables at some of the banks. Okay. Because they're relying on places for fresh produce like supermarkets to give them produce that got a little banged up, maybe it's got a little brown spot or something like that. And so basically, I was telling you how these distribution centers work. So you might have a church or community center or whatever where once a week you get all these volunteers who come down and they get the food, and it's really a very simple process. We used to get it done in about an hour, and I used to volunteer because I was also a member of the church. But actually, um, many of the people who were giving out food were themselves, and and in the best food distribution places, were actually called customers, and we're treated like customers. And the food, we're not given a bag of food where somebody tells us what's good for our diet. Okay. The food is separated out, and here's the frozen stuff, and here's the produce, and here's the breads, and here's the non-perishable stuff. And if you're lucky, maybe you get toilet paper and other stuff, because food stamps, EBT, food stamps can't be used for things like toothpaste and toilet paper and matches and other stuff that's not food. Okay, so there'll be a place for that. And yes, there'll be a place for your candy bars. And yes, there'll be a place for sodas. There's also a place for milk. There's a place for eggs. There's a place for, whatever. And and so those get all sorted out. And typically, and if you ever, by the way, if you ever find yourself in the unfortunate situation where you are in need of regular going to a food distribution center to supplement your diet, um, if you can, volunteer, because often as there's no payment obviously, but often as a thank you to the volunteers who are themselves food bank customers, will have an opportunity to go through the line first. So if there's something really special, first crack at it, because otherwise it's just whatever gets put out at the time somebody walks through. So people are lined up, and the way they did it at the Episcopal Church is everybody got chits, everybody got numbers, and they would pick a number out, and you got to go in according to your number. And if you got a high number, you might not get as much choices, and if you got a low number, you might get more choices. Although sometimes they would put out some of the food, and then the rest of the stuff would be behind them, and so there might be other good stuff that would come out later in the day. I mean, you only have so much table space available in each section. um, but all of it got used. You know what? All of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. I mean, we would put out everything until it got used. And God, yes, that includes cans, because cans are something that people who can't get to the store all the time can can store and use at the times when they run out of the perishable stuff. You know, God, the idea that people would tell you don't give food to a food bank because they only want money. I mean, money is. I mean, I'm dealing with a situation right now with a home that I had until recently been living in, where people would give donations that wouldn't make it into the home. And actually, at the time that I left, I had just arranged with someone. It was a house for homeless women, and we were basically treated like well, it was basically created as a reform school kind of atmosphere for teenage girls who had gotten themselves pregnant and had gotten kicked out of their homes and needed a place to stay with their babies and learn how to take care of their babies and learn how to take care of themselves while getting their first job or going to school, right? Um, and we had chores, and we had had to check in every time we walked in and out of the campus. If we didn't, the staff would wake us up in the middle of the night to go sign the check-in form. I mean, we were working, most of the women there were working long, long, long hours. And, and hell, it would have been nice if we could have gotten a food bank, because we couldn't. We were isolated. We had no way of getting there. But when I left, I had arranged with someone to bring by some stuff, because I didn't want money going there, because money, it has to be tracked, it has to be accounted for, and it's pretty easy to take money and divert it into something where perhaps it doesn't belong, and not actually have it get to people who need it, or turn it into food or supplies. I mean, I was there for 3 months, and most of that 3 months we had one shrimp fork for a room, for a house of 8 women. We didn't have any forks, so we had this big kitchen and we had no forks. I mean, it was those sorts of things. And so I'm just saying that if you can donate directly to the people who benefit and have it get to them, then do it. Get to know the people who are distributing food and other things to people who need it. And if you can, go volunteer and actually bring it in person, because the day that I left, we brought over all this kitchen stuff to the kitchen, because there were a lot of things that we just didn't have, and hundreds of dollars. A friend of mine had this cooking company, and and she was teaching people how to eat healthy food, and so she had all these. I don't know if you can see up here. You see those red bowls up there? Those are some of the ones that I get, and but we had several more, and brand new knives. I kept one of the knives, and brand new cutting boards, because women are trying in the house, trying to eat healthy, and trying to take the food from the food bank and cook it up, right? So you need knives, and you need cutting boards, and you need bowls, and you need stuff to cook with, and stuff. And every time it would show up, it would disappear, and the staff would accuse the women in the house of stealing it. But I brought hundreds of dollars worth of really good knives and bowls and cutting boards and aprons and other cooking stuff, and it's all gone. So sometimes the staff of these places are helping themselves. So what I'm saying is, if you can, get to know your local food distribution center, get to know your local food bank, and bring the stuff over yourself. Don't throw out your food and give them a check just because some damn comedian tells you in a video that that's what you're supposed to do. Okay. And Brendan, as far as donating candy bars or little chocolate eggs, um, or a bottle of soda or two, you know what? And that's one of the things I want to emphasize about the way that we set up the food distribution centers. We set it up to be like going to a grocery store, where people could make their own decisions. And if they wanted to eat healthy food and then occasionally help themselves to a chocolate bar, as a reward for, or if they had a bad day or something and they wanted to eat a little chocolate, that they could have chocolate. If they wanted to have, a little soda with their pizza, that they could make those decisions themselves. It's not that homeless people or other people who need food can't make their own decisions. And what I want to do with Homeless and Healthy is start creating videos to teach people how to cook when your cooking facilities are basically a mini fridge and a microwave. And I can't do I can't cook a turkey for Thanksgiving in there. I don't have a full size oven. I don't have. Hopefully a friend of mine offered me a little burner, but basically I figure out how to make like healthy food using a microwave, and I don't even want to hear the stories about how you shouldn't healthy, because you know what, right now that's all I have to cook with. So I want to be able to help people make those decisions, to be able to go to a food bank and get the food that's available, including the stuff in the cans, and turn it into something that is healthy and tasty and enjoyable and filling. And I really hope that people will stop watching these comedians making videos about how you shouldn't give food to food banks and you should give them money, because there are people who will do good things with the food that you give them and can make their own damn decisions about what's healthy for them. All right, so that's it. Talk to you later. Happy Thanksgiving from Dr. Cat Schreier.